Bruce will as well. And we'll keep an eye. I think a lot of people are probably getting ready for traveling to Texas school today. But I would love to introduce John Herrel. John is amazing. He is um, a man of many, many talents. He started as, right now, he's an automotive artist. He combines his photographic skills, art, and passion for cars. He retired in 2010 and started doing professional photography full time, focusing on portraits and commercial photography. He earned his Master of Photography degree in 2018, his Photographic Craftsman in 2020, and after purchasing two Porsches, one for the street and one to race, he's focusing on automotive art. If your passion is cars, motorcycles, aviation, or motorsports, he says we should talk. What he's learned through several life experiences is that if you want to be good at something, you have to make a commitment, invest the time, the expense, and focus on your goal. He thinks that's true of everything in life when you want to excel. He's actively involved with several photographic communities and has received numerous awards. He is currently our president of ASP. His first car was a 1969 Jaguar XKE with a British racing green exterior and black leather interior. I hope you have a picture of that for us today, John. He also has currently a 2021 Porsche Cayman GTS 4.0 in carmine red exterior and espresso cognac interior. His race car is a 2016 Porsche GT4 Club Sport, the entry-level factory-built race car from Porsche. John's careers have included 19 years as a chemical engineer and corporate business manager, 12 years as a software solutions entrepreneur, 4 years as a financial planner, and now 15 years as a professional photographer. He says life is good. So John, he's a Renaissance man of many, many talents. We're thrilled to have him as our leader, president of ASP. And we are also thrilled that he is sharing with us today about what I call his need for speed. Take it away, John.
Thank you, Eileen. I'll share my screen now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through you can call it a PowerPoint presentation with lots of pictures. And I've also got some videos to show you, some in race car videos. Wrong one to start. Let's start here. What I'm saying now is racing again after a 50-year hiatus. So where did this all begin? I grew up in Evansville, Indiana, actually in this house. This is a picture of the house after my mother died. We were probably leaving for the last time, and I looked out the car window with a cell phone and took a picture. My dad had renovated this house probably 6 times. They lived there probably 50 years, I'm guessing. So my dad was a floor sander. He sanded and refinished floors. My mom was a school secretary. So we were definitely part of the blue collar crowd. But it was a good life at the time. At that time, you don't know any different, and everybody around you is having a good time, and we did too. My first remembrance of racing really is listening to the Indianapolis 500 on the radio. And back then it was, they were little small handheld radios, either that or what I would call a desktop radio. That's my first remembrance of racing. I didn't actually attend the Indy 500 until after I graduated from college. My dad did lots of things, but I would not consider him a car guy. We didn't have an extra car to work on or do anything with. And none of the neighbors around seemed to be car guys to me. And I don't even to this day consider myself really a car guy. I don't know enough in the breadth and depth of cars to consider what I know to be a car guy. I did have a cousin who lived in Chicago. And one time when I was up in Chicago during the summer, my cousin's boyfriend had a relatively new Corvette, and it was really cool. He gave me a ride in it, and, I really thought that was special. I graduated from the University of Cincinnati with a degree, a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering. I kind of had, through looking at a number of cars that you would see around, I liked sports cars. And when I graduated, and I honestly, I would have to say, was earning more money than I knew what to do with. This was 1970 when I graduated, and I bought a 1969 Jaguar XKE. It looks like this, and it was a $6,000 car. They were selling 1970 models. They had 169 left over. They gave me $1,000 off, and I took it. And that was about twice the price of a typical car back then. I would say a typical car back then was about $2,500. Enzo Ferrari described this. He said the Jaguar E-Type is the most beautiful car in the world. And, that was kind of my opinion as well. Its design and mechanical attributes were just great. It was terrible in the rain. Typically, it was like if it was raining out, my car wouldn't start. And fortunately, I lived about a mile from work, and I'd just get out an umbrella and walk to work because my car wouldn't start most of the time. So after I got the car, I joined the Sports Car Club of America. It was really a social group focused at cars. I became a corner worker at races, and once I'd gone to a couple of races, I was kind of hooked. At the 1971 June Sprints at Road America, it's like a week-long event, or a nearly week-long event for sports car racing. My experience was, wow, amateur racing really exists. Okay. Up until that time, I only knew professional racing. And so suddenly I got the bug to go racing on the amateur level. At the same time, a friend of mine he graduated from Indiana University with a degree in journalism, and he had a fraternity brother that became the sports bureau chief in Indianapolis. And the Associated Press was always looking for photographer stringers to take pictures around the track. This is a 2.5 mile long track. They need a ton of photographers to cover every place, so that if somebody has an accident or what I will call does something exciting, they've got a photographer there. And so I bought a 400 millimeter lens and, got in on that, because of my friend. At the same time, the Evansville Courier and Press, a local newspaper, we got to know the sports bureau chief, both because we were doing Indianapolis 500 work, and because both my friend and I had race cars, and the sports bureau chief really loved that. And he would literally get us a photo pass to go anywhere we wanted to go. And we went to Formula One races, Can-Am races, Trans Am races. Both of us were full-time employed, so this was always weekend activity. A number of years later, it was probably the mid-'80s, this friend of mine and I decided to go to a race as a spectator. And we weren't there 20 minutes sitting in a seat that we couldn't move around. And we both said to each other, never again. We're both spoiled. We either drive a race car or we get a photo pass or we watch it on TV. Okay, I'm never going to be a spectator at the track doing, and be kind of captive in one location. So in 1972, it was, hey, let's go racing. I'd been to the 1971 June sprints at Road America. I bought an Austin Healey Sprite, and this was a used car. This was probably a 1950 something version of an Austin Healey Sprite. We're doing this in 1972. So this car is somewhere in the 12 to 15-year-old range. So we got it, didn't have to pay much at all for it. We stripped it down, we stripped all the paint off of it, got everything down to just metal, did the body, did the suspension, bought Huffaker Engineering at the time out of California, was like the race shop to go buy parts or have, you can buy engines or you can buy parts of engines. And, we would buy from them, had lots of phone calls with them to explore, what exactly we ought to be doing to different things. My car had a 16-to-1 compression ratio for the car geeks here and twin carburetors. It put out 100 horsepower and probably cost in the neighborhood of $2,000. What was the ambiance of an SEC race? Okay, we were kind of in middle America. I raced at Road America, I raced at Road America in Wisconsin, as far west as Kansas, Arkansas, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan one time, Ohio, and I would go to Road Atlanta. So that was kind of the geography that I covered, and would hit some of those tracks. Oh, in Missouri, at one time I lived in St. Louis, and so we had a track pretty close there. So that was kind of the geography that we went around. Most everybody worked on their own car, but there were a few what I would describe as high-end teams. One of those was managing a car for Paul Newman at the beginning of his racing career. I remember standing at the fence watching other racing groups go by, standing next to Paul Newman, and on his trailer and on his driver's door, all it said was PLN. And it actually took a while for everybody to realize that was really Paul Newman, the actor, because he was just one of the guys when you got to the racetrack. Amateur racing, there's no tire money. I'd get a couple of cases of free oil every year from an oil company, Valvoline or somebody else. Most of the drivers at the track, the families came along. There weren't a lot of other spectators. This little girl made my day at one race. She came up to me and asked me for my autograph. And I'm like, I had never had anybody ask me for an autograph before. So it was a real highlight that weekend. Race tracks that I raced at from 1973 to 1978, Mid-America Raceway was, they were less than an hour from my house in St. Louis. Indianapolis Raceway Park was not, it was a couple hours away. Road Atlanta was a longer trip. But I had a relative that lived close to Road Atlanta, and we'd stay with her. Road America was, that was a long drive. Hallett Motor Speedway in Oklahoma, Columbus. You can see most of these tracks are about 2.5 miles long, except Road America, which was much longer. I found this old photo that somebody took of me in my car, and I'm honestly not quite sure where this is, This has, when I look at it, it's like, it almost looks like it's a gravel road or something. It looks like it's got rocks on the side, but I assure you, I did not race on dirt or gravel, so I know it's paved. I just can't remember where this one was taken. Another picture of me at some track. I think this was Road Atlanta, but I'm not sure. I raced for 6 years. Typically, it was 6 races per year. Notably, as we'll compare with my Porsche racing, it was 1 set of tires per year. Everybody that I knew, bought a set of tires at the beginning of the year, and you use that set of tires through the entire year. I don't remember what tires cost back then. They were relatively expensive, but they were nowhere near what a set of tires costs today. All of these races tended to be about 30-minute races. I never wrecked a race car. Was never involved in a wreck. At the end, in 1977, I got married in 1975. My girlfriend, now wife of 49 years, she knew I raced cars when we met and when we got married. And in 1977, she says, "We're not having any kids until you stop racing." She was concerned about being a widow. And so I said, "Okay, I'll make you a deal. The amount of money that we allocate to my racing hobby, we're going to allocate 2 years worth of expenses in 1 year." And so before the season started, I took my engine, and well, really it was just the engine, to a guy that, he had a dynamometer and could, look at the performance of your engine. He had a flow bench. He could look at the performance of your carburetors, and he made some adjustments. And I immediately went from like a middle of the pack driver to the front of the grid. And so I had a great time in 1978. I set at least 1 track record in my class. All of these are races with multiple classes of cars in them, so you can have multiple winners out, when a race finishes. It's not just one winner. There's a winner in every class. Interestingly, I had no speeding tickets until I stopped racing. And then I began to get a couple of speeding tickets, but I never had enough that I lost a license. And over that 6 years, I had 1 win and a couple of podium finishes, mostly because, my carburetors, that the major problem was with the carburetors. And when we fixed that, I would have done, or did do, much better. So what happened in the 50-year hiatus? Okay. I had 2 daughters. My hobbies became golf and skiing and photography. I had careers. I spent 20 years in the chemical industry, started out as an engineer, then became a chemical business manager, changed companies and became a business development manager, developing new products and markets. The company I was working for, they hired about 4 of us to develop new markets. And after 6 years, they decided we were just getting to the point where, we were about to sign contracts with company to buy the new products. And management said, we don't like that. We decided we'd like to remain in the commodity chemical business instead of the specialty chemical business. And so I had just gotten a new Apple computer approved at work. It cost $12,000 to buy an Apple II computer and a laser printer. And it had to be signed off by the vice president. Did that and was working with the IT department. And at one point, when they said, "Hey, we're going to give you a package so you can leave," I went to the IT department and said, how good am I? And my story is they lied to me and they told me I was good. Okay, well, in fact, you find out how good you are when there's no IT department to back you up. But I was pretty good at, I'll call it wandering my way through problems, and the client didn't realize there was really a problem. He just knew that his computer needed to get fixed. And I did that for about 12 years, I think. Sold the company and started doing insurance sales for a couple of years, and then a friend of mine back from the chemical days called and said, "Hey, I'm a financial planner. You ought to do this." And so I did that for about 4 years. Decided I could. I did a financial plan on me and said, "Hey, you can retire," and I did. And within 3 months of retiring, my daughter got married, and I took a bridal portrait for her, and the wedding planner said, "I want to hire you as a wedding photographer," and that's how I got into professional photography. So this is 2021, early in 2021. My brother and several of my friends have Porsches, and I'd gotten over the years to wanting a Porsche. In 2021, my older daughter's mother-in-law died unexpectedly of an aortic aneurysm, and she was 7 years younger than me. And while I really didn't have an emotional attachment to her, it really hit me at that time that, if I want to do something in life, I better get after it. Okay. And so, I had this, what am I waiting for? Let's go buy a Porsche. Well, I had no idea what it's like to go buy a Porsche. And you remember, this is 2021 and it's COVID. Okay. And so everything was hard to get. But I didn't understand the process of buying a Porsche. But Porsche had a really good configurator online that you could configure all kinds of possibilities and look at cars and do all kinds of things. And I spent hours on the configurator until finally I said, okay, I've got it. And I knew the local Porsche dealer. He has about 5 different auto manufacturers that he represents. And so I called him up and said, "Hey, I want to buy a Porsche." And he's like, "Talk to my daughter." His daughter is the general manager of the Porsche dealership. So I walked in, handed this configuration to her and said, "This is what I want to buy." I knew she didn't have it on the lot, but it's like, okay, how long does it take to get this car? All right. I had no idea. She says, "Well, I'll have to get an allocation." It's like, what is an allocation? I've never heard of this. So, I called my brother in California, who lives in California, and said, "I'm going to buy a Porsche. Here's what I'm buying." And he sent me my contact information to the general manager at the dealership that he works with, who is reportedly the second largest Porsche dealership in the country. And so the general manager calls me and says, "Understand you want a car. Have you finalized the configuration?" I said, "Yes." I said, "Do you have a allocation?" He's like, "Yeah, I got an allocation." And so the local dealer here said, "Hey, I can't do anything for you." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to California," and I ordered it out there. The interesting thing is I want it delivered to the Atlanta Porsche Experience Center. And this guy said, "Sure, we can have it delivered there." In the end, it got delivered to California, and they trucked it across the country at no cost to me to the Porsche Experience Center. It really is a great experience. So I got the car on September 15th. This is a picture of the car after they, what I'll call, revealed it to me. And they took pictures. They drove my car around different places around their building, their facility, and took pictures and then gave me the pictures. The delivery experience is they do 2 appointments a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. It includes a tour of their facility, a personal guide everywhere, through the museum, through their restoration area. The reveal happens after the museum tour. They take you into this private, I'll call it studio or building where the car is. It's covered with black cloth. They pull it off. They ask you to sign the board where they have the signatures of all the people who've done a Porsche Experience Center delivery. They send you to lunch, and so you walk in, and I'm there for lunch, and I'm going, okay, I want a hamburger and and some fries and a glass of wine. And they hand me this very formal menu, and they've got their wine list there. And I like Cabernet, and so I see one. They don't have any prices on because the whole meal is free. And I go, I want this one. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it cost about $100 a bottle. And I thought they will have one that's open. Well, they didn't. And they said, we'll have to go down to the cellar and get a new bottle. And I said, oh, that's okay. I'll pick something that you've already got open. And they're like, no, you're here for the experience, for the delivery experience. And so they went down, opened a $100 a bottle. Now I got to drive home. So I told them, I'm only having one glass. They're like, doesn't make any difference. If we have to throw the bottle away, we'll throw the bottle away. And I'm like, holy cow. So, then you go out for the driving experience, and it's all about how the car handles and how to take advantage of all the design of the car. You go through a kick plate experience, low friction, a skid pad, and what amounts to a 1-mile race course. And it was a fabulous experience. You get in the car and you drive home. That cost me $500 at the time. Porsche has now figured out what the demand for that process is, and they now charge $2,000 for that process. I would not have done it for $2,000. So what I call creating the itch. I got my car on September the 15th. And joined the local Porsche Club region. And there was an event called the Rennsport Dragon Rally, which is in October of 2021. And it's driving through the curvy roads of North Carolina and Tennessee. There were more than 200 Porsche cars that showed up. They put you in groups according to your desire to go fast. They call it a spirited drive. What that means is you drive as fast as you can possibly go on this road without crashing, is about what it amounts to. Some of you may have heard of the Tail of the Dragon, but there are lots of curvy roads. There is a photographic company called Killboy Photography that photographs cars on these roads all the time. And they have I don't remember whether they use smug mode or not, but they put them up, and the pictures are part of the cost of going on the Rennsport Dragon Rally, or what they call the RDR. And so this is a picture of my street car with a tail of cars behind me. There are cars in front of me as well, but the photographer did a good job. So, but the problem is having raced 50 years before, this wasn't enough. And so what do I do now? And how do I do it? I am not a Porsche mechanic. I don't want to learn how to be a Porsche mechanic. So my wife worked at this company called Spyrex Sarco, and one of their top salesmen who lives in Louisiana was, his name was Max. And he and my wife, got along so well. She managed inside sales and he was an outside salesman. And, they got along so well. She had retired. And so what he started doing was every year, actually, it was before she retired, every year between Christmas and New Year's, he would call and chat with her for 20 minutes or something. And then, another year would pass. Well, in December of 2021, my wife and I are sitting on the couch watching TV, and Max calls. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And she says, "Hey, John and I are sitting here, watching TV." They chit chat a little bit. And then she says, "Well, Max, what are you doing?" And he says, "I'm working on my Porsche race car." And that was about the end of the conversation with her, but it was the beginning of the conversation with me. And Max and I must have talked another hour. He regularly attends the Rolex 24-hour race at Daytona, and it was from January 28th through 30th in 2022. He had a spare ticket. So I bought his spare ticket, met him in Daytona. I live in South Carolina, so it's just a drive down the road. And he has I'll call it an entourage of about 12 other racing guys who love to go see races. 4 of them happen to race Porsches in the Porsche Club of America Club Racing Series. And so I began to pick their brain. It's like, I'm not going to learn how to be a mechanic. Some of these guys worked on their own cars. And so I described what I would need. And they went, "Oh, that's called arrive and drive. You find a company to manage your car and they deliver the car to the racetrack. You show up and you race. And when you're done, you go home and they take care of the car. They take it back and do their thing." And I went, "Oh, wow. Who does this?" And so every one of them pointed me to this company called Autometrics Motorsports. And they do everything that I need. And they're located in South Carolina. This is a picture of what I would call the brain trust. Gordon is the guy in the center. He talked to me about the education that he got, or maybe I should say didn't get. I don't remember whether he graduated from high school or not. But if he did graduate from high school, that's all the education all of that kind of education. But he immediately went to work as a pit crew person for a race team somewhere. And he just kept picking brains and soaking up all this, information that he needed until he decided to start his own company. And he has 2 sons, both of which graduated at the top of their class in mechanical engineering. And Corey is the guy on the right. He builds transmissions. He's a driver coach, and he's an incredibly fast race car driver. The guy on the left is Adam. He does data collection and analysis. He organizes all the activities that go on race weekends. And so that's kind of, these guys run the team. They're located in Summerville, South Carolina. They have gotten so successful that they manage more than 50 Porsche race cars at a time. And, not all of them go to the same races. Typically, he's going to have 8 to 12 cars going to an individual race. Some weekends he's taking cars to multiple different racetracks. They do the race preparation. They transport race cars to and from. They do what I call the race support. They're the pit crew, repairs, communication. They do data analysis. They have a hospitality area where, between times that I'm on the track, I can sit down and relax. They provide breakfast, and dinner and snacks through the day. They have a driver's lounge that you can go in and relax in. Most people only change clothes there. That, you know, the hospitality area is so nice. If you want to buy or sell a car, they will help you find and kind of negotiate prices and whatnot. Or on the sell side, since I've been there, they've added a body shop, a wrap shop, which puts all the graphic, you know, it's a vinyl wrap that gives all the graphics, and they do graphic design as well. A couple of weeks ago, I found out they've now got a driving simulator, race simulator that you can go down there and use. They provide driver coaching. They do a little bit of streetcar service, but not that much. But they've begun to do car restorations. Restorations can run, I would tell you, from $50,000 to $200,000 on, you know, depending on the car you've got and depending on what kind of work you need done. And what they told me in the beginning was there's a cheap way and a right way, and they'll do the cheap way if you insist. But what you really want to do is listen to them and determine, you know, what way you really want to go. The car I got is the entry-level factory-built race car. It comes, you know, this is what they recommended. It comes stripped down, you know, to the essentials. It's in a highly regulated class, so I can't do anything that improves the performance of the car, but I can make upgrades and additions, like for the Motec data collection system, for race communications, for comfort, you know, all of these kinds of things. This car has a camera, a front-facing camera and a rear-facing camera. And I'll show you a video of at least one lap of a race later. Safety, everybody's like, gee, is this safe? And so the car comes, you know, from the factory with a roll cage, fire suppression system, electric cutoff, and a fuel cell. It's not a gas tank. It's literally a fuel cell so that it doesn't spill gas in case you're in a wreck. It doesn't come with a driver's seat, and so they recommend a high-end seat. The seat costs $10,000. It's what they call a halo seat, so the top of the seat wraps around where your helmet is, so it keeps your head in place. It's made of carbon fiber. You've got a 6-point harness, window nets, you know, a Snell helmet, a Hans device. If you were into some forms of racing, Dale Earnhardt in NASCAR kind of decapitated himself in a wreck that he had at Daytona about 20 years ago. And it's because he wasn't wearing a Hans device. And so the Hans device goes around your neck and secures your helmet so that it can't move forward rapidly and effectively break your neck. So, you know, that's what they call decapitation. I've got a fire suit, underwear, all of these kinds of things. Interestingly, if you race around here where I am, it gets hot, and even in what you might consider cooler climates, it gets really hot inside the car. And so they recommended what they call a cool shirt. There's a $500 shirt made out of Nomex that has small tubing that chilled water circulates through your shirt all during the race. The water comes in at between 45 and 50 degrees. There's effectively a small refrigerator sitting in the passenger area. I've got a hydration system, which means I push a button on the steering wheel and it pumps water from what I'll call an ice bucket, into my mouth. Cameras front and rear, and the steering wheel tilts up horizontally so that it's easier for me to get in and out of the car. who are the people in Porsche Club racing? We're all amateurs, and there are what I call the professionals, the doctors, lawyers, veterinarians, all of those kinds of people. And there are a lot of small business owners, both still working and retired. The typical driver age is from like 45 to the early 80s. So there typically are not any 20-somethings or even 30-something drivers here. They're all noticeably older. It's highly regulated racing. They really focus on fun and safety. They focus on it, but it doesn't always happen that way. Only Porsche race cars can enter. There are so many classes of racing to make sure that the people you're racing against have a car that doesn't significantly outperform yours. So there's lots of Porsche classes. Here are other sanctioning bodies that I could go race in if I wanted to. Everybody wants to know, what does it cost? I'll call it the lower class cars, the smaller horsepower cars are about $50,000. And at the high end, you may spend as much as $500,000 cars. Most of the cars are grouped between 100,000 and about 350,000. So that's the bulk of the field. A race entry back in the 70s was like $100. For today, it's $1,000 plus or minus. Track day practice, you can typically get for about $375, and you can go on a track and practice, for not a large investment. Race prep from Autometrics cost about $500. New oil and fluids, check everything over, and when they're checking everything over, they find things that need repairs. Not every time, but it seems like it's relatively frequently. Before the race that I did this year, I called and said, "Hey, how's the car?" And their response was, "You need a new sensor because we can't look at the dial where we see what oil pressure is and what oil level is. So we've got to replace this thing." And to be honest, I don't remember what that cost. Race team support at the track or at a work day where they come to is $1,000 a day. That's basically the pit crew, the meals, all of that stuff. I can go race. I've got a racetrack close to me that I can go to without having to pay the $1,000 because the car's ready to go. And if something happens, I'm just going to go home anyway. If they transport your car, it's $2 a mile. The big expense is race tires. A set of tires costs $3,000 a set. And at a Porsche Club event, you use 2 sets. So that's $6,000 in a weekend. Some friends of mine are moving up to a faster class of cars in Porsche Club racing. And they told me when I was at Road Atlanta that their weekend only requires 1 set of tires, and a set of tires is only $1,500. So it depends on the class you're in, what you're spending for some of this stuff. Another interesting one is race fuel. These cars use 100 octane, and it costs $14 a gallon. And so in a typical 4-day event, I spend about $900 on race fuel. And then, of course, there are my personal expenses, hotels, meals, if I drive or fly, whatever that cost is. At the track, early drivers meeting, typically 7:30 in the morning. I'm not a morning person, so I'm always getting up and driving from the hotel to the track. You catch up with friends. There are some group dinners. There are two run groups. There's what I call the fast group and the really fast group. And my car at its speed is classed with the really fast group, but we're typically at farther back in the grid. So the fast cars go 10 to 15 miles an hour faster than we do. So they come by in a hurry. Friday is practice and qualifying. Saturday is two 30-minute sprint races, and Sunday is a 90-minute enduro with a mandatory 5-minute pit stop somewhere in the middle of the race. My 80-liter race or fuel tank, it can't go 90 minutes, so I have to come in and to make it's really for safety reasons. They want you to get out of the car, stand there, get back in the car, and you've got to be there for a minimum of 5 minutes. Physical fitness, hey, I'm 77 years old. Most people guess I'm between 60 and 65, but it's like, hey, I'm older and I'm in better shape than a lot of the guys that I see. You have to pass a medical exam, in my case, every 2 years. I'm wondering when they're going to make it every year, but it's vision, cardiac fitness, neurological. They want to know how your reflexes are. Vision is my problem. I've had 4 or 5 operations on my left eye over the last, 10 years or so. But my vision in my left eye is 20/30. The vision in my right eye is 20/20. In the last year, I've had edema, which we're trying to figure out whether it's completely gone or just almost completely gone. I'm in touch. I'm, checked by a retina specialist, and I've had a detached retina within the last year. And he gives me a clean enough bill of health that, I can go on from, and keep right. He's written a letter that I can take to the track that says I'm okay. You need to stay hydrated. In a typical weekend, I lose about 10 pounds. It's the endurance of the race. Physical strength isn't that important. So, I, like a lot of people here, I sit in front of a computer a lot. 2022 was kind of getting licensed. That was funded, that was buy a car and go to all these track days and whatnot. And that was funded out of my retirement portfolio. I was in a hurry to get licensed because I started when I was 75, and I said, I'm going to race till I'm 80, and then I quit. Paul Newman, you might wonder, he raced through the age of 81 at a very high level. And so that's my inspiration for racing at least until I'm 80. I went to the Porsche driving experience, which instructors helped a lot. I've done a couple of events in my street car before the race car was ready. In total, I did 17 track days that year and got licensed approval. There were observers who observed me driving and said, yes, you're qualified to go racing. So I got approval in August, and my first race was at Road America up in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. This is a picture of me getting out of my race car for my 5-minute pit stop. It was a 4-day event. We had some troubles sorting out the car. There was a fuel pump relay that failed, a couple other just minor parts that, but my response was I survived the weekend. Then in October, I went to the Carolina Motorsports Park, which is about 45 minutes from me. In my 5th race racing a Porsche, I won what was called sprint number 2. And the autometrics guys were, flabbergasted, exhilarated. I don't know. They were extremely happy that I had won a race that early. Um, for me, it was an indication that I still had it to go drive a race car. And the family was there, so that was pretty good. The 2023 experience was not so fun. In the first place, after a discussion with my wife, she decided, remember, I'm the financial planner. I know how long my money lasts, and got plenty of money to go through the age of 100, but my wife is not so sure. And so she said, okay, now your automotive fine art business needs to fund your hobby. So that's what I'm, doing now. I'm not going to be doing as many races, but in April at the Road Atlanta, I had a I was involved in a wreck. It wasn't my fault, somebody else's fault. Um, this is a picture of the car when it came back to the paddock area, scraped the driver's side, fixing it. Oh, and the other problem is it broke the steering in the front of the car, and it cost $23,000 to fix the car. So let me go, let's see. Let me go here and start this. This is the start of a race at Road Atlanta. And if you look at the track here, the front stretches here, we are coming up. There's this bridge that you see that's about where the black car on the right is right here. You crest this hill, and then you head steeply downhill and go from there. So let me start this. You'll get an idea of the chaos and dance of racing against other cars. All of these cars are not in my class. For instance, the two cars immediately in front of me are not in my class. So I'm not racing against them. So that was the start of a race. Now I'm going to take you to a different part of this race. Let's see. It's about 5:20 here.
Now, John, that seems like it would be very, can you pause it for one sec?
the cars you see passing me in most cases are these cars that cost about $350,000 and they're about 15 miles an hour faster. They've got 100 horsepower more than I do. And, you know, they're what are known as 911 Cup cars. The last one is, let's see. $19.10. Okay. That's the wreck. The red car that moved into the space where I was, he's actually not allowed to, or he was considered at fault there because I was already there and he moved in where he shouldn't have been. Nevertheless, I have to pay for the damage to my car. So,
So, John,
yes.
it seems like it would be incredibly difficult to have these different class cars all running the track at the same time.
You have to pay attention.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. Part of the problem with that race was it rained at Road Atlanta the day before, and I went out in the rain and qualified. And all of the cars who didn't qualify get gridded behind me. And so, what you were seeing there was a lot of cars that, were clearly faster than I was, come out and, pass me because I qualified ahead of them. Typically in a race, it happens if they start in front of me, a typical race is about 20 laps, and they come around once in a race, and you kind of see them coming, and it's their responsibility to pass you safely, but that guy didn't. So 2023, I also went to Carolina Motorsports. It was a lot of fun. It was the end of the racing season. This is a picture after the race, with, there are actually 3 granddaughters there as well as my daughter. You can see 4 sets of shoes other than mine, but my, at that time, 5-year-old was not wanting to stick her face out and have her picture taken. So she was a little shy there. So the 2024, was a couple of weeks ago. I finished 3rd twice, and Road Atlanta, there are 5 big races a year. Road Atlanta is one of those. And I got 2nd place in 2 sprint races. The Club Sports Series, that, like I said, there are 5 Club Sports Series through the year, and finishing in 3rd place at a Club Sports Series race is a big deal. The Pirelli hat has the little gold leaf on the front. You can only get one of those by finishing in a, on the podium in one of the races that they sponsor. So what was the experience? I was getting much more comfortable in the car, and I was going a lot faster. Finding the limit, finding the edge is really the challenge. in racing cars, and I say it was close racing. You can see I've got somebody's, I don't know whether it's front tire or rear tire, but and it's up on air jack. The little gold post there is one of the air jacks. They connect a nitrogen bottle to an outlet on the hood, and with about 400 psi, the car pops off the ground, and they can change tires, do whatever they want. But the black is from, and I can tell you, I did not feel in the car, I did not feel us touch. But when we got back, I had black circles on my car, and I went over to his car. It turned out it was one of the same Autometrics team drivers. He was in the same class I was, and looked at his car, and he had black marks on his car also. So it was great. Had a good time. We're running a little late, so I'll save the video. Here's when I compare the 1970s with now, professionalism. This is of the team and whatnot. Car cost, less than $3,000 versus my car cost $150,000. A race back then cost about $500. Today, it's about $15,000 a race. It was a 100 horsepower car that'd go about 110 miles an hour. Today, it's a 400 horsepower car that'll go 150 plus. Safety in my car is state of the art. Autometrics told, I had no wrecks in 6 years. Autometrics told me it's not a case of if, it's a case of when you're going to have a wreck. And so hopefully I've had mine, and, don't need any more wins. Licensing was more complicated, a lot more medical, data analysis, coaching team, hydration systems. Those are all yes now. They weren't back then. The interesting thing is the transmission in the old days was a 4-speed, and today it's what is called a Porsche PDK. You shift gears with paddles on the steering wheel, but Porsche has engineered it so that you really can just almost drive the car in automatic. There are only a couple of racetracks where I downshift. And it saves between a half a second and 0.8 of a second per lap. Multiply that by 20 laps, and you see that you've got a 10-second lead in the difference between having a manual transmission and a PDK transmission. I pulled out some, papers from my toolbox and found that my fastest lap at Road America back in the 70s was 3 minutes, 6 seconds, and 179 thousandths. At my race in 2022, my lap time was 2 minutes and 26 seconds. That's 40 seconds faster. That's an incredible amount of time between two different eras and two different cars. What's the mindset? Porsche Club tells you at every race, have fun, be safe. And they really stress that. But for me, it's like before I get in the car, not only me, but every driver I know, they go to the bathroom. Okay. Then it's like, okay, get in my car, be conservative, but so you're sitting there, and I can be what to me is completely relaxed, sitting in the grid, ready to go. I just feel like I have no stress whatsoever. But as you go around and you hear on the communication, go, 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 suddenly, everything ramps up. It's like dancing on the edge. You're trying to find out how fast you can drive this car and not lose control and spin out or hit somebody. And the other thing that's maybe a little hard to believe is, like, on the long straights on every track, I can kind of sit back, relax my hands. The car is so stable. If I point it in one direction, it goes there. And it's just an incredible car to drive. Then afterwards, you either celebrate or commiserate with your friends. And, and if you've done some damage, the immediate question is, how much is this going to cost me? um, the experience is, team camaraderie. It's a feeling that you're alive. It is stimulating all of your senses. It's G-forces, the sound, the speed, the sights. You're aware of the danger, but you feel like it's under control. Braking is very different than braking on the street. On a race car, on a racetrack, when you come into a corner at peak speed, you are going to hammer the brakes and slow that car down. The trick is figuring out when to release the brake and how fast to release the brakes so that you can corner at maximum speed. In a street car, you come in and let's say you come up to a corner or a stop, and you tend to apply the brakes easily at first, and then you keep pressing harder and harder until you get the car stopped, where racing is almost like the complete reverse. Managing the weight distribution on the car, on each of the tires so that you can figure out how to get the peak performance is there. If you touch the brakes, the weight goes to the front, so you can put weight on the front. If you turn the wheel a little bit, one way or the other, you put more weight on left side tires or right side tires. And so it's managing all of that weight distribution around the car. That's one of the things you have to learn. Highs and lows, they're kind of the obvious things. It's really a high to find out that you've gone faster than you've ever gone before, because that tells me that I'm building my skills and my knowledge. Just some random pictures. This is, this red car in front is one of those $350,000 cars that, his top speed is, if my top speed in Atlanta is 150, his is 170, 175 miles an hour. That's why some of those cars go by you so quickly. This is a picture of my street car, courtesy of Randy McNeely. When Randy found out that I had a red Porsche, he called me up. He lives in North Carolina, so he lives about an hour and a half from me. And he's like, "Is your car really red?" I said, "Yes." And he's like, "You're coming up. Let's pick a time for you to come up. I want to take a picture of your car." So this is the picture that he took. Cars, in the paddock. This is a wider view, so you've either got a roof over it or you've got an awning over it, so it stays cool and it's cool to work on. Another view of the same situation. Here's a picture of the inside. You can see the red 6-part harness, the loop. This is the little refrigerator, okay, that pumps cold water into my shirt. This is just a toolbox. This is the ice water that I can hit a button right over here on the steering wheel and it pumps water. The problem with that is the tube that goes from here up to my helmet is exposed to the air, and you end up with really hot water. And so what I typically do is open my mouth, press the button, let all of the warm water just fall out of my mouth down my driver's suit until I get to cold water. I take a couple of gulps and I release the button. Here's the steering wheel tipped up, and that allows me to get out of the car much quicker, because you've got to tilt your head forward to get around the the halo part of the seat. You've got to get over the bar here, the roll cage. I had to learn how to get in and out of the car. The rear of the car, it's data systems and electronics, 2 shock absorbers here. That's pretty simple. The front end is empty except for this, and that is one of the air jacks. There's one in the middle of the car. You put 400 pounds of nitrogen pressure on it, and it just raises the car. And one of my granddaughters, after I got out, she's like, "Can I get in?" And I said, "Sure." So she hopped in, and I took her picture. And any questions? I'm happy to answer questions. This is a picture that Christy Stevens took of me. She was a speaker at our state association, and she told me she wanted to take a picture, and so this is the one that she created. Any questions?
So I have some. How long did it take you to get the first Porsche that you ordered?
I ordered it on March 31st, and it took until September to get it.
So about 6 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's not unusual. What I didn't realize is, or that's the way, and if you want one of the Porsche SUVs, they typically have some on the lot. Now they may not be what you like, but they're on the lot. But if you want one of their sports cars, it's typically a 6-month or more wait if you want a brand new one. And that model that I bought was a brand new model that year and wasn't available used. It's amazing what used Porsches go for. They retain an awful lot of their value years later. Let's put it this way. There are, and now I can't remember the model, the Porsche 356, which was first produced around 1950, and it was probably $1,000 to buy then. They go for up to $1 million now. Mm. So they're worth way more than they were ever worth before, but they've got to be the right model in the right condition, all of that. What else?
Well, you said you can't do any modifications on the car. So other than, the data analysis and things like that, when you're racing in your class, it is literally skill that sets you apart one from another.
That's correct.
Wow. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? I jumped in there.
I have one. Your mental process. Obviously some of these cars are coming pretty close. You've got to make a decision that you're going to have to move 3-4 feet one side or the other, pass somebody. You've got to get close to do that before you go around. Talk about your brain a little bit. How does it's not a cheap thrill, but it's a graduated chance thrill, I would think. Can you talk about that a little bit, or do you want?
Well, one clarification, the car passing, it's their responsibility to get safely by. There isn't any, gee, I was passing and you were in the wrong spot and you made me crash into you. It's like, nope, the car doing the passing, it's their responsibility to get by safely. Part of that is learning, to be comfortable, you get very aware of your surroundings, what cars are around you. I've got a camera pointed out the rear. I used to have a rear view mirror, but in place of the rear view mirror, I now have a rear view camera, because looking out the back of my car with the rear, or with the rear view mirror, I would see the crossbars of the roll cage and the wing were right in my vision, looking at cars coming up on me. And so so Autometrics devised a way to solve that problem, and they put a rear facing camera on the top of your car, and now you see over the ring and you have a clear view of everybody coming at you. And so I know, kind of where I can just relax and stay in a position where I give them plenty of room to pass me. Okay. So I kind of take control there. But once you start getting into corners, my response is, it's my corner, it's not their corner. And my car will corner about at the same speed theirs is. So in a corner, I'm not normally holding them up. It's only in either short straights of the track, or something. It may look like, if I see them coming, I'll put my car where I want it to be, and I feel comfortable in my mind that I'm okay. Is
your mind, your peripheral vision, your reflexes. It's about a 30-year racing career, right? Is that the way I read this?
Well, I had 6 years in the beginning, then I had a 50-year hiatus, and now I've got, I'm into my 3rd year now.
Okay, so talk about your reflexes, your side vision, and just your general. You got to be able to move your feet, your hands. You got to be able to link that to the brain. You got to be doing it in a heartbeat, right?
Yeah, that is true. My reflexes are what I would describe as good enough. Are they as good as when I was in my 20s? Clearly not. Okay. Let me stop this. Yeah, my reflexes are not what they were 50 years ago, but they are clearly good enough for, racing a car. It's part of the medical evaluation that they evaluate whether you're medically cleared to race. But a lot of the passing, faster cars and whatnot, you kind of get in a flow, and you're really aware of what's around you, and and that's how you get through safely, and the race goes on.
Have you ever had really, really fear, or my brain used to just kind of lock out when I was flying combat. I never worried about that. I was just going to get there, do what I had to do, and the rest of it, if there's something happened, that was peripheral.
Well, there are 2 tracks at Virginia International Raceway and at Road Atlanta. These really high speed by high speed, I'm talking about 150 miles an hour. When you tip over, you go under the bridge and downhill at Road Atlanta, and you're going downhill full throttle at 100 to 100 plus miles an hour. The first couple of times you do that, I'll say for me, every time I race there, it's because it's blind. When you go under the bridge, they've got a couple of signs that are little painted squares up there that it's like, you should be here, okay, when you go under the bridge, all right? But even when you're there and you tip over, I mean, it is a completely blind downhill, and then suddenly you see where you're going. And when you're going 100 miles an hour and you couldn't see at the top, it's a little disconcerting until you finally get this flow in your mind that it's like, okay, if I go under here on the bridge and I point it, I know now where to point the car, and now I'm comfortable. But the disconcerting thing is if there's an accident, the outside, off, if you run off the track, you hit a concrete wall. Okay. And a friend of mine last year went, the same year that I had my wreck, he went under the bridge, and there was one of these 911, one of these 350,000 plus cars, and he thought he could pass Chuck going down the hill, but Chuck was too far ahead. And so what happened was he got the car turned sideways, slammed into the passenger side of Chuck's car. Chuck's car hits the outer concrete wall, ricochets across the track, and hits the inside concrete wall. So he, damaged both sides of his car, climbed out without any, I'm sure that he was a little shaken, but he had no, physical or medical damage. Where when I hit that wall, I broke 2 ribs. Now, the facts are they take you to take you to medical, and they go, is everything okay? And I was still, I guess, so pumped up on adrenaline. I'm like, my back's a little sore, but, and they kind of press on it a little bit, and they go, well, you seem fine, sign here, a legal release. Okay. And I thought for 2 weeks, everything was fine. I was, I seemed to be good. And 2 weeks later, remember, this is April in South Carolina, and there's a whole bunch of pollen, and I had one giant sneeze, and the cracked ribs separated, and suddenly it was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Well, I knew what I'd done. At that point, I knew I had broken ribs. Before, I didn't know I had broken ribs. And so my wife takes me to the hospital, or not the hospital, the doc in the box, and has me checked out. Well, they send me downtown to the hospital, but they were like, well, you got a couple of broken ribs, but there's nothing we do about that. I'm like, I knew that before I ever got to the hospital. So
been there, done that.
yeah. So, it's kind of this awareness, and it's like a dance. You're mentally trying to figure out, where is the edge? If I go over the edge, bad things happen or could happen. If I stay on the correct side of the edge, but it's like you want to keep pushing. I can sit here and watch these videos and go, I could have driven farther into that turn or faster into that turn, because I can see, I can hear what's going on in the engine, and I can see the video where I was on the track, and I didn't go deep enough here, all of those kinds of things.
Wow.
What else?
You'd have been good in combat. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can only imagine being in combat.
Oh,
Same
Leslie
stuff.
said she can't comment because she has a whole bunch of kids in the room behind her, but she's enjoyed it very much. The videos were incredible too.
If you look up John Herrel on YouTube. If you look up John Herrel on YouTube, I have a bunch of race video there. I will tell you, to begin, it is not edited down too short. It's whatever came out of the camera. One of these days I'll have some spare time and I can edit, but I haven't yet. And they're all public. You can just watch all kinds of race video.
I'm writing it down now. Well, thank you so much, John, for sharing this. I think it's fascinating.
Let's
And
see.
very impressive that you've done so well right out of the gate. Did I lose you? Are you there?
Oh, Leslie asked, what did our kids think about racing again? I can tell you what my wife thought. Okay. My wife says, you agreed to retire from racing. I didn't realize that that wasn't permanent. So 50 years later, when I said I'm doing this again, she was not all that happy. Let's see. And yes, Michael, if you want to call me, we can talk. So yeah, I thought the mix of video and pictures would be fine. I only had one old picture until I went hunting and I found a plastic tub called memorabilia taped on the lid, and in there I found several more pictures. So.
Well, thank you again for doing this program for us. And of course, it will be in the Zoom library. And as you know, John, we have lots of activity on the back end where people watch the videos after the fact. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your racing career.
All right.
Everybody, thanks for joining us. It's good to see you back again, Webster. Congratulations on your new baby, aka computer. And hopefully we will see you in a couple of weeks, May 9th, 1:00 p.m. for our next ASP Zoom. You guys have a good evening.
Thanks.